So that took us a good deal of time, and we did that during a thaw. The thaw was on Monday. It needs to be above freezing, dry. The wood has to be dry,
Dry.
and it's not going to get below freezing for the next 24 to 48 hours. On Monday, it was almost 50 degrees. On Tuesday, it was going to be 40.
Yeah.
During the night, it wasn't going to go below 34, and that was the perfect
So
time.
we fit the window.
Our friend
You-
Na said, "Oh no, not on Monday. I have to work." And I said, "Nah, I have to work with when the weather is what it is."
You when you're doing your pruning during this time of year, you got to make sure you do it in the thaw. Work with the weather, not with your calendar.
Yeah. And so you can do all kinds of things during the thaw. Like for instance, if you've noticed that your dwarf Alberta spruce has reverted, and this one reverted years ago, and you see it, that's not a tree in the background. That is the dwarf Alberta spruce where a branch reverted to the original genetic makeup of a white spruce. And it's going to try to grow a full-sized 50-foot white spruce on top of that dwarf Alberta spruce. You need to follow that back to where it came from and get it off of there. And because it's been doing this for so long, it's going to expose some interior of the plant to cold. And that's why you don't want to do it when it's as cold as winter can get. You want to do it during a pruning thaw. They do look silly, don't they, when they get like that? When they first revert, they look a little bit like Viking helmets with horns sticking out. Yeah. So Na, I've shown you this before. Na had been pruning with just head shears on her bird's nest spruce, which repeatedly ends up giving you many, many, many little branches which crowd each other out and shade the inside, and you end up with all of this dead in there. I showed you how I pruned that out with a great deal of work in order to take out all the dead and left it, and it has now grown back very nicely.
You can't even tell.
So I was teaching Na how to prune that. I said, it's a good time to prune this now. So she is taking whole branches out back to side branches in order to make the whole thing a little narrower, a little shorter. And she said, I see what I should do now. We also pruned her heptacodium, the seven sun shrub. We put it in 6 years ago. And it is now, she said, it's kind of reaching out and getting past the garden and sometimes all the way out to where the car pulls up. I said, yeah, it's time to prune. It's time for us to take off the original trunk. See the original trunk that the nursery made? These are plants, the heptacodium seven sun, that are ugly ducklings in a pot.
They are.
And in order to get them to grow quickly and bulk up, they tend to pinch them a lot at the nursery. So they pinch it at this point. And an ugly trunk that was going crooked became an uglier trunk doing that. The three trunks that you see behind it have grown in the 6 years from the base. And those are the straight trunks that we want. So what we did is took off the original trunk back to as far as Steve could reach.
Yeah, I am not an arborist.
I will take a little more of that off because what I want is that straight piece right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what that's going to do is make it much more of a small tree, large bush, which is what we want there. And we'll probably get another straight trunk coming from the base to give us one more. So that's what we did. And we did all that on a pruning day in about, what, 2 hours?
2.5 at most.
Yeah, 2 people, 2.5 hours. Any questions about any of that?
There.
We've got a hand up from Nancy.
Hey, Nancy, go.
Hi. So I want to turn one of my dwarf Alberta spruces into a topiary, the spiral look. And can I do that in the thaw? Or should I do that first? Because I also want to transplant it. So which should I do first? Transplant it and wait a year or two and then do the spiral cut, or spiral cut in the thaw and then later on in the year transplant it?
You could do either. Dwarf Alberta spruce is going to grow vigorously enough, although they don't grow very much in a year. They're vigorous growers, and they have a very dense root system. As dense as the top is, the root system is quite dense. You're going to end up moving almost all of the root system with it. So you could do it either way. But because you're going to be cutting, and when you cut for a spiral, you're going to take whole branches out in a spiral thing up the trunk. So you're gonna be exposing the inside of that plant. Make sure that you've got a 2-day window
All right.
when you prune. So you might be better off to move it now while you've got a chance and wait until the very end of winter as it's getting more settled and prune it then, because you're gonna be exposing a lot of interior wood to sudden cold.
And we might get really, really cold.
Yeah,
And
this would
we don't know that. We don't know if we're gonna go 20 below zero coming up. I would wait. I would tend to move the plant first, then prune it on my own, if I was thinking about it, but.
And it's right next to a very large blue spruce, and that's why I need to move it. So you said the roots are very dense.
Yeah, very dense. You'll be able to go 4 inches out beyond the edge of the foliage on the dwarf Alberta spruce, cut all the way around and tip it out of the ground, and you'll probably not have cut any major roots at all, just little fine roots at the edge.
That's
Okay.
what our experience with those is.
Yeah, we have in fact the very first one that I moved, I didn't mean to move. I pulled it out and Mark said I could use that at my house. I said, well, go ahead and give it a try. I didn't mean to, I just pulled it out. It made me move, no problem.
Yeah. So did the ones that supercells.
I see that Jean made a comment in chat that she'd use her shark vacuum on that flower because the filter would catch the flower. It's a fine enough filter. Which reminds me that I do have a shark vacuum that I was using afterwards. And I asked my science advisor, I said, why was I getting shocks? I wasn't getting shocks from the shop vac, but I was once I got to using the shark. He said it may not be as well, and true, it was not as well grounded. The shark is a plastic vehicle, and they probably thought that they don't need to do this. It doesn't have the third prong grounding where the vacuum, the shop vac did. So yeah, the shark is a good vacuum. I can recommend them too. Although this latest version of them really bothered me a lot. They made the cord 4 feet shorter. And I know this because I used to be able to plug it in here and do these
The
two
whole
rows.
top.
Yeah, and I thought, why the heck would they? Well, 4 feet of cord is what? An extra 3 cents savings on materials, and that's what they do with things. They make them smaller. Make them smaller and cheaper. Okay, let's keep going then. Oh, they're so pretty. Thank you very much for the yellow crown night heron, Therese. On New Year's Day, New Year's morning, a yellow crown night heron showed up in her yard, which she said this is known to be good luck in many cultures. So she sent us a picture and said, "Here, we'll share the good luck with you."
Yeah.
This is a
Exciting.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we move on from the too far from the 7th century, Marilyn says we planted my 7th son in 2009. It's way too much of a tree now. Vicky helped spot it for me last year, but still needs more triage. 2 main trunks plus 4 smaller. Lots of water spouts after last year's pruning. Think we pruned in early March. Can I take it way down?
Yes, you can. We had damage on a tree form, 20-foot tall 7 Sun, high up on the main branches, and I said, "There's nothing I can do except get rid of this branch." So I cut it all the way to the ground, just leveled it to the ground. And that year it grew almost 5 feet because it is very vigorous, and I had to sort out which trunks I wanted to keep, so you can turn it back into a shrub that way. I wouldn't do it repeatedly because accidentally another gardener who showed up at the property said, "Oh, this thing, Janet must have been taking this out, and look, it's come back."
Uh-oh.
She cut it all off, and it did not like being cut twice in a row.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you can start emailing or texting us because we'll start back in with Free for All Fridays this coming week.
The 10th.
On the 10th. And we'll be glad to talk about what's going on then, and maybe have some more things to talk about inside. So that's it for our garden today. We'll move on to our main topic.